Good morning, folks. Roddy here, and today John and I have come out to Glengoyne Distillery to talk to Gordon Dallas about Glengoyne in connection with the wee competition that we're running during October. So, Gordon, thanks very much for agreeing to talk to us.
No, it's all. This is great. It's a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah, and thanks for arranging to have us in this spectacular room. I really wish I wasn't driving.
I know, exactly. Help yourself. No, don't.
No. The police wouldn't be best pleased. So, we're going to talk about Glengoyne, but first of all, your job title is Experiential Ambassador.
I know.
What the heck is that?
Well, when you find out, could you please let me know? That's okay. Well, I've got a few ways of defining it, but the serious way of defining what experiential ambassador is, I talk about a bottle of whiskey is two sides. You get the front label and the back label. And the front label will tell you what it's called, how strong it is, what type of whiskey it is. The back label is about the story, how it came to be, who came up with it, how is it here in that bottle. And I'm the back label guy, I think, really. I love unearthing the stories of Glengoyne and our sister distilleries like Rosebank and Tamdhu, but predominantly, and of course Isle of Skye, I'm working on that at the moment, but predominantly it starts with Glengoyne, and it's about the story of Glengoyne. That's what, and it's just, when you're at whiskey tastings, it's lovely to talk about the flavours.
Yes.
You know, to talk about all the qualities of the whiskey, but I really like to then push the history and push the stories and turn the evening into more of an event and an experience, not just about what the whiskey tastes like. Or it's about tickling you. I don't know. I don't know what the experience is, but just listening and being in the same room and just trying to bring a broader brushstroke to the evening, I think.
Right, aye. Well, we'll dig into the stories in a wee bit, and maybe once John switched the cameras off, we'll try the tickling.
Did I say that?
Do you want to start by telling us a wee bit about the story of Glengoyne?
Yeah, absolutely. And there'll be no time by the time this goes out, but maybe next year I do the storytelling experience. And one of my first jobs as the experiential whiskey ambassador for E. MacLeod was to try and put together a coherent narrative from Glengoyne's past, starting in 1833 legally to the present day. You know, we didn't have many archives. It was a box of papers from Edrington, our previous owners, stuffed. And I'm looking at the window it was in, a box stuffed with papers and a hard drive. And it was just to go through the hard drive and some of these papers and then try and work out almost 192 years of history through 5 owners, all Scottish families that have independently owned this piece of ground since 1833. I say owned, leased. Until 1957. And it's just a story of continuity. And it's small. I came across a leaflet calling it the smallest distillery in operation in Scotland. That was a number of years ago, so I don't know if Edrington had maybe ceased production at the time. But it's not much, it's 3 stills. And when I go around the world, I tell people, it's great having these great big distilleries with lots of stills, but we've only got 3 at Glengoyne. We only had 2 for a while, but we've only got 3 distilleries at Glengoyne and 13,000 casks on site. It's a small, beautifully picture postcard, handcrafted distillery, I would say.
It is a lovely distillery. In fact, the next time you're in the shop, if you look along the front of the counter, it's cunningly the graphic that's laser etched onto the counter is one half of it's Glengoyne and the other half is Talisker.
Wow!
And that's a puzzle that we give people. You know, do you recognise this distillery? So
because for a while,
because it is so picture postcard. You know?
It was one of the local distilleries.
Aye.
There's now quite a few in Glasgow in that area, but for a while it was maybe Auchintosh and us, and that was the Glasgow distilleries.
Aye. To tie back to this promotion that we're doing in October, to give people an idea of what they might be tasting if they're buying one of the Glengoyne whiskies.
Yeah.
Do you want to run through the range and talk about the flavours and them, starting with, I guess, the white oak?
Well, you can start with the white oak, yes. Or the 10-year-old, but when we get into the history, when Ian MacLeod purchased Glengoyne in 2003, approximately 80% was getting put into blends
Right.
and other whiskies. If you drank a Cutty Sark,
Right.
That was quite a lot of Glengoyne in Cutty Sark during the Edrington era. When Ian MacLeod purchased it in 2003, it was a 10, a 17, a 21 in the core range. 12 was travel retail. And that's why a lot of people say, you know, you're around Europe and in North America, I haven't really heard of Glengoyne. That was one of the main reasons. It was getting used.
It's mostly blended.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Since 2003, my goodness, the core range, you know, we've got that 10. The 12 is now part of the range, 15 and 18, 21, 25, 30. And our Oak Master Series. Now we've unveiled the White Oak, as you've mentioned, last year, and we've got Mizunara as well. So we've got a whole range, and they've missed out the cask strength whisky as well. But we've got about 4 times what we had prior to 2003. So Ian MacLeod have put their money where their mouth is and had to build new warehousing to house that stock to mature it across the road. So the White Oak, yeah, we released this last year. Big departure from, as really, you would say it's quite a, what, Glengoyne, almost entirely in bourbon barrels. And if you're looking at us right now, we're in Glengoyne, in the manager's house. There's a malt master about to happen. And you taste individual single casks of Glengoyne and then you blend them. And this is first fill bourbon I'm holding in my hands. And this is effectively what this White Oak cask is. And if you have a smell of that, Roddy, that was hopefully lovely, just a smell. That lovely flavour.
So sweet.
And that fruitiness of Glengoyne sort of bursting out there, that vanillas you would associate with the bourbon barrels, but it really accentuates that fruity style of Glengoyne.
It's like if you made like apple pie or something.
I think apple pie is a wonderful flavour note for the White Oak. So yeah, White Oak, it's not an age statement, but it's unchilled filtered, it's 48%, 95% first fill bourbon, 5%, crucially, virgin oak.
Virgin oak.
Just that. And I spoke to the blending team, it put it together, and it took a while because they started with 100% bourbon.
Right.
And we've got, you know, we don't release something at Glengoyne if we're not all happy about it, and it just didn't quite hit the note that we were wanting to hit. And it came back and forward to the blending team, and eventually they found some Glengoyne and virgin oak casks, unseasoned wood, quite resinous, quite spicy, almost undrinkable, with a whole glass of it, but 5% in that bourbon.
Seasoning for the...
So we're drinking the White Oak, that apple pie, and a lovely bit of white pepper from those unseasoned casks, give it a body, and that extra alcohol gives it that, you know, weight as well. So I think the White Oak's a fantastic whiskey to start with. It's a great price and it's a great story. It really, one for before dinner, the aperitif style whiskey, or in this lovely sunny weather we've got outside, some soda and make it long. It's a really nice, refreshing,
I've not
crisp
tried it as a
Glengoyne
whiskey.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell us next about the 12-year-old.
The 12-year-old, I mean, it's probably, I think, our biggest seller, really, the 12. I love the combination of sherry casks and bourbon barrels in almost
and
equal parts.
that's more traditionally the way that Glengoyne would have gone with the sherry barrels?
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we've always put Glengoyne for a long while into bourbon, hence we've got a 24-year-old White Oak. So it's been there, but as a release, a single malt, really 2009 is the starting pistol, the 12-year-old comes out.
Right.
And that's a lovely combination of that traditional warmth and nuttiness you get from the sherry casks and that bright, light, sort of citrus notes from the bourbon barrels. And the 12's a cracking, along with the 15, a cracking balance of bourbon and sherry casks.
And then the 15, you're starting to see, well, to me anyway, there's maybe the wood influence is getting stronger.
Yeah. I mean, Robbie, whose office just above us, Robbie Hughes, the manager of Glengoyne, he talks about some of the perfect age, that mid-teens for whiskey, not just Glengoyne, that 15, 16-year-olds, just a lovely sweet spot between wood and distillery character. And you get that sort of richness coming through, that complexity coming through. Maybe the 12, still got that bourbon sherry combination, it's zesty, it feels youthful and bright. The 15's got a quarter of the bottle, first fill, Oloroso seasoned sherry casks, age 15. So that gives you that wood influence.
It's a very solid base.
Yeah, you put a little 20% of the bourbon casks first fill there, and that gives that tropicality. So you've got that sort of brown sugar, that macerated fruits, the lightness of the bourbon coming in on top of it as well. So it's not a heavy sherry, it's just like wonderful balance. So the 15's really, I mean, it's doing very well for us, and I think I always get mixed up with golds or double golds, but yeah, it's got a wonderful haul of golds
It's
this
won
year.
a lot of prizes.
Yeah.
And then the 18's a bit more serious to my palate. You know, it's more like an after dinner.
Yeah.
You know, one and sit and think about it.
That's
kind
right.
of dram.
A really lovely proportion of those sherry casks. So we've upped it again from the 15, and we've upped it, you know, a sizable amount of those European oak sherry casks. And we're in the Glengoyne, there's the European oak sherry casks.
Can I have a sniff?
Oh yes, let's sniff together. And interestingly, these are both European oak sherry casks.
Oh yeah. I see that. That's glorious.
Rich marzipan, dark
Can I
fruit,
keep this one?
rum and raisin. By all means, Ronnie. Security. So, you know, that's the base of the 18s, that lovely rich sherry style of Glengoyne, and almost equal proportions of refill cask.
Right.
So people always hear the word refill and think, I don't know if that sounds positive. It means they've been taken away, emptied, brought back, and we refill them for 18 years and then combine them with the first fill sherry casks, which means the refill casks, the wood's not as active, and you get that lovely Glengoyne character coming through. And the Glengoyne character, that lovely green apples we get at the younger age, maybe more red apples at the 18s and upwards as well. So that lovely Glengoyne style is still evident in the 18 coming through, and with that balance of first fill of that wood as well. So 18 is just just a wonderful expression.
And then I would like to be able to say what I remember about the 21, but I've only ever had it once, I think, or I can't remember. So tell us about the 21.
Yeah, if you get a big dictionary, and I think you'll put up at sherry cask maturation.
Right.
The 21 has been I know a lot of people watching this, no Glengoyne, will be familiar with the 21. It's just a wonderful example of, as we call it here on tours, Christmas in a glass.
Christmas in the glass.
That lovely, again, it's the European oak, but less refills now and much more first fill. But again, you're still getting that, I'd like to think some of that Glengoyne character is still in the glass. It's not all spice, oak, wood, dry tannins. There's some lovely sort of dark fruits going on in that 21, but it's really, think of a Christmas market, all that spices and cinnamons and the brown sugars in that lovely glass. It's been a real staple for many people's dram, and if you're watching this near Christmas, it's one to have.
It is,
you know,
a
at
wee
Christmas.
treat. A wee treat.
It's
for
a wee
Christmas
treat.
time.
I always say, if you do it right, there's about 28 glasses in a bottle. If you do it right.
If you do it right. Aye.
I'm just trying to how to justify spending money, but you know, it's not over the night like a bottle of wine would be, and some people spend a lot of money in wine. So it's an indulgent, decadent, lovely dram, the 21.
So the my kind of shorthand for Glengoyne based on taste and is that you have this nice progression through the ages. You know, like some whiskies, they'll do different things at different ages, but Glengoyne, it seems to just go, you know, it's light and fresh when it's young, and then it just gets a bit heavier and chewier, and the sherry comes to the fore.
I think that's it.
It's a nice smooth progression.
As we say, from the 12, you've got roughly about 20% first fill sherry, the 15's about 25% first fill sherry, the 18's around about, and we don't talk about it, but since you're free, around about 50%,
right.
You know, and then when you go up to the 21, they don't tell me the exact percentages, but you're way up. You know, by the time you get to 30, you've got virtually all first fill.
Yeah.
You know, all of it, I think it is all first fill. 25's near. So yeah, you're absolutely right. That's how to look at Glengoyne.
Excellent. So again, just to go back to the promotion that we're running, that's the sort of choices that you have, and buy one of those bottles and you get entered in the prize draw. But one of the other things that we're going to do just now is that Gordon, you've worked on developing this historical approach to your tastings, and that's something that a lot of you that come to our tastings in the shop know that Matthew and I like to do. So we're going to have we're going to have a wee ramble round the history of Glengoyne, and I think one of the the questions that came to mind when I was thinking about this is to do with the Highland Lowland line and how Glengoyne sits in that story.
Yeah.
You know, so the Highland Line we know dates back to the 18th century.
That's right. The Wash Act of 1784.
When would there have been illicit distilling going on here? Do we know?
Well, the notes passed down to me from our previous owners, and maybe passed down to them from their previous owners. And I have actually spoke to the local history club.
Right.
Yeah, the Clare and Balfron History Society were were discussing this. Approximately about 13 distilleries.
Okay.
I think the Reverend Guthrie Smith, writing in his parish memoirs in 1888, because that's what the local parish and minister would do, would be to curate the history of his parish.
Yeah.
So he mentions in his book around about 13 illicit distilleries in this area, of which, you know, this wasn't here in the 18th century, but I like to say that the knowledge of what's in the bottles, behind us, in front of us, and in the shop, comes from those hills, the Campsie hills that I'm pointing to. You know, and if I had special effects, I would have the knowledge rolling down the hill and the barracks being built up and bottles appearing, because that literally from the crofts and the farmers of the Campsies is where Glengoyne, we stand on their shoulders, and it was them that illegally had to make the good stuff and get it to Glasgow. And I always say you can't talk about the story of Glengoyne without talking about the story of Glasgow. As it gets bigger, so does this. You know, so the crofts then, you know, will become this distillery.
So then the expansion, I guess the first record would be, as you've mentioned, the 1833, the taking out of
That's right.
the actual first licence.
George Connell.
Right.
Yes. George Connell. So 1823 was the Excise Act.
The one that changed it all.
So many distilleries are turning 200 years, either last year or this year. And you might think, well, why is Glengoyne not in that party, waving the 200 flag? Well, George Connell, I found out, was a 17-year-old boy in 1823.
Right.
You needed deep pockets.
Right.
To adhere to the new laws of the Excise Act. You needed at least £10 to get a licence. And that book that you get given told you had to build a distillery. And you had to have a safe with keys. And if you couldn't house the excise officer within 1 mile, build him a house. So you needed deep pockets to become a distiller. So yeah, people like Glenlivet and all that off the mark. But it took George Connell. And I have researched, was somebody else on this land? Not legally, we can't find anything.
Okay.
It was George Buchanan of Carbeth grants George Connell a licence in 1833. And George has obviously got the money, does it legally. Although I had to get lawyers in because I couldn't understand the Victorian or the Edwardian, whatever it is, Hanoverian legalese. It really is fiendishly difficult. You know.
But you've done the research.
Essentially, he gets a licence in 1833.
And then the distillery operates through the 19th century, and this come.
I mean to say, as Burnfoot Farm.
As Burnfoot, and that's.
I know. It's not called Glengoyne.
There's. Do you have an expression that's called Burnfoot?
There was.
Right.
Yes. There was one that was brought out.
Yes.
I've got a bottle of it. It was sometime 2008, 2009, 2010.
I have had that at some point, but it's a while back.
Yeah, we just sort of doffed our cap to the early incarnation of this. It was still a small farm distillery. So no doubt it probably was a farm. You know, and the farmers would do the land
potentially
in the summer.
Its own barley, perhaps.
That's right. I did actually research plenty of barley fields around this area in the 19th century, and of course in winter they would use the fruits of their labour to distill. You know, so summer farm, winter distilling. I'm guessing in the 19th century. I know that because George Connell goes back to farming in 1851.
Okay,
he moves off to Falkirk, and that was only 11 years after a guy called James Rankin opens up Rosebank. And I just wonder, did George Connell ever bump into James Rankin? I don't know. So,
I mean, if he'd been a distiller, then he'd probably pal about with other distillers.
Surely.
you would think.
You know,
No records though, I guess.
No.
So and then this brings me to my next question, which kind of ties into the no records thing, because when Alfred Barnard visits Glengoyne in the 1880s, he says that at that time the distillery was triple distilling with 2 stills.
Yeah.
And then at some point in the 20th century, Glengoyne ends up with 3 stills, and some point after that is double distilling.
Yeah,
and
I know. I wish I had a gold bullet to tell you exactly I wasn't here when Alfred Barnard came, and I would not be surprised. This is so close to Glasgow, so close to, if you think about it, 40 years earlier than Barnard. I wouldn't say half of Ireland, but tens of thousands of Irish landed at the Brumie Law in Glasgow, and almost, if not quite double the city, about a third of the city were Irish, and Irish whiskey was more popular in those days than Scotch whiskey. In fact, it was rum probably, then Irish whiskey, and then Scotch whiskey. And I, like Auchentoshan and Rosebank and other lowland distilleries, I think we're trying to imitate that Irish style.
So
triple distillation.
Triple distilling to make a lighter whiskey.
Yes.
And then at some point, and because you only had that box and the one hard drive, so you don't have the records, at some point the owners of Glengoyne decided that they would switch over to...
Yeah, I had to go to Leonard, who owns, via Stuart Henry, who's in charge of all the distilleries. I said, Stuart, I think it was Edrington, I uncovered some of their research that Glengoyne had 2 stills for most of the 20th century. I don't think, Barnard says, I don't think we ever had 3 stills, it was 2 stills. And when Edrington purchased this distillery from the Lang brothers, and the Lang brothers had this from 1876 to 1965, Edrington purchased this in 1965, ran it for 1 year, closed it in the summer of 66 for 6 months almost, and had the biggest, it's almost a complete rebuild. And then they brought in 2 smaller spirit stills, where the big spirit still had sat.
Yeah.
And we didn't know that.
Right.
I have to say that was new. We talked about the spirit character not really having changing that much since the Langs took over in 1876, but that same quantity of liquid going into 2 small stills, and then with the temperature turned down and trying to coax, and they're talking about coaxing it over the line arm, it would be sweeter, it would be more copper contact, it would be cleaner, it would be crisper than it had been before. So the spirit character sort of changes slightly in 66. I think it's 23rd of December. It reopens, brand new distillery, hundreds of thousands of pounds of investment. And now we've got 3 stills, but we're still double distilling. So it's part of the story I would like to do more of, is the process story, as opposed to owners and whiskey. So it's something
It's something that we're interested in the good spirits as well, that kind of historical process.
There's a great picture of Robbie Hughes in here, 2003, and new stills getting brought in 2005.
Right.
So we've had to change them twice since we've owned it. So there's an ongoing process of change in any distillery.
There is in any distillery.
Yeah,
yes.
we'll get to the bottom of that.
So then, I guess my last kind of historical question is about the Highland Line, which kind of brings us back to almost the start of things for commercial Scotch. The story with Glengoyne is that the still house is in the Highlands.
Yes.
And the dunnage is in the Lowlands.
You'll get that if you come on tour. If you win that ticket, you might get that on your tour. Yes.
But to go back to what you were saying about how perhaps the reason for being a triple distilled whiskey was to make an Irish or Lowland style whiskey. So you're a Highland whiskey, but with Lowland characteristics.
Yes.
Can I say that?
I think you can. I think maybe regionality's got much more of a difficult thing to talk about.
Let's not fall down that rabbit hole.
I know.
No.
Yeah. You can do all sorts of styles no matter where you are, and I know there's certain distilleries in the Lowlands that don't put Lowland on the label, they don't really think that's an important part of their DNA. And yeah, I think you could be forgiven for sitting, as you said, a 10 or a 12, sipping that, thinking this is a lovely, easy-going, very approachable whiskey. Drinks like a Lowland whiskey.
Aye.
Although some of the new Lowland distillers would be, red in the neck and veins pulping, thinking, there's no such thing as a Lowland style. We're doing this, how can you say that? But traditionally, Lowlands were seen as lighter and more floral, a bit grassy and easy-going, approachable, as opposed to the big, rich, heavyweight bruisers that we are coming out of the Highlands. So yes, I think you could. I think when you get down to the 21, 25 and 30 region, I'm holding up this, then you're in that big, tannic, big sherried whiskies you associate with Speyside. So Glengoyne, I'd like to think it's went its own way. I think you could say that. It's got its own way. It's got a foot in the Lowlands. It's definitely got a foot in the Highlands there, or Speyside. It's just doing its own way, unpeated and slowly distilled. I think that's, I keep mentioning Robbie Hughes' name because I was round twice in the last month with Robbie doing a tour for our guests, and 25% capacity we're using that still house. So we've got 3 stills and we're using only a quarter of the capacity. It's very inefficient because we're just coaxing and being very slow and unhurried with our distillation method. And that's just, I said to Robbie, why? He said, that's what I was told by the last guy. He's not changed anything since he came in. The last guy told him, that's how we do it.
That's how you make it.
5 minutes in, you cut the spirit. So you're running it for the spirit run for 5 minutes, and then you're cutting into the middle bowl. That's extraordinarily quick.
Right.
And that first 20 minutes gives a very concentrated green apple style, which Robbie was saying, 13 distilleries in, he's worked at. That's the first one. It does it that quick. And the first one with that real concentrated green apple. And then for the next, 2 hours, 40 minutes, it's about a 3-hour run. They're there, but not in the big concentration of the first 20 minutes. So it's just, it's got its own character, Glengoyne, and it's just done that for a very long time.
And I guess maybe that, I wonder if, we don't know because we don't have a parallel Glengoyne that didn't change in the 60s, but I wonder if that slow trickle distillation is a way of achieving, the lightness of style of the old.
I know,
I mean, we'll never know, but this is a kind of speculation that
Well, I love the speculation because when Edrington bought this place in 1965, that was now in the white hot heat of the American whiskey boom. We talked about the golden age in the 30s of the 200 plus distilleries opening, the 1890s, then you've got that big dip. They bought this to try and I suspect they brought in the second, or the 2 stills, the 2 spirit stills.
The 2 spirit stills.
Because there was also movement in Europe. There was I call it new category, a new world of America that I've just mentioned. They want blends, but a new category, Italians are buying this thing called single malt.
And they're
never went away, but it's been that much of the market, and now suddenly there's a country called Italy that are buying single malts. They come across to buy Glengrants.
They all favour the light young whiskies, don't they?
That's right. So I think Glengoyne, because there's a chap in Hamburg. You meet some great people across there who's potentially got one of the first Glengoyne's single malt bottles, 8-year-olds, and it's got stamps to bring it to importation stamps, bringing it into Italy. Now, if anybody knows anything about this, he's showed me the website, and there's people that curate websites of importation stamps, so they can date whiskies being imported to a country by the stamp. It's quite a read.
Brilliant.
Best done with a bottle of whiskey, but it looks like it's pre-71.
Right. Okay.
So
quite soon after the changeover, the rebuilding that Edrington did,
that's right.
They would have been looking to that market.
There's a potential single malt market.
And
so we could be in Italy at 68, 69, 70 as a single malt. So I have not come across a single malt before. Edrington, I think Langs were just making it for Langs Supreme, Langs 12, Langs 8. So it's all going to Langs and then getting sold and blended. But it's Edrington that I think realises there's a market in single malt, and we really need to laser focus on what we're producing from those stills. You can't just churn it out and sell it to the blenders and they can then put it in. I'm not saying it was churned out before 66, but it maybe at the weekends, let's get it through there, get it in a barrel and let's get home. But I think when you're making a single malt, you can put a label on it that says Glengoyne. I think that changes the narrative.
Yeah. And I wonder if stylistically, because, round about the same time as that change here, you've got Tormore coming on stream, you've got Glenallachie, and all these 60s distilleries that were specifically making light whiskey, pale whiskey for the American market, and then, as you say, the Italian market as well.
Yes. I
think we're going to have to revisit this conversation once you've done some more
research.
And I'll do some more reading as well.
Yes, I was in Italy last year, but I'd love to go back and find out
That's fascinating. I'd never thought of the American aspect of the changes in the 60s.
Everyone talks about that, the blends.
The Italian side of it.
Yep. And that's just people are thinking, so if they're, I think it was by 1977, there was about 10,000 cases of Glengrant going across. Macallan in there as well, and there's a whole host of single malt people getting in there and selling their whiskies into Italy, and that's just slowly people are beginning to see the release that Glenfiddich did in the early 60s with a marketing spend might not be such a bad idea.
Yeah,
this could be the start.
Edrington and Glengoyne would have been getting on board that train.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. They were.
Absolutely fascinating.
So there's always more to uncover. It's one of these things I wish I had more time, and I wish it was more easily accessible material, but it's not easy.
I find a lot of the time that the stories you want to hunt down, they've been lost in the mist, sadly.
And there's also what's real, what's not real. What was marketing material?
Well, that's the thing. There's
30, 40 years ago, it's now just been passed on as fact.
That's truth, yeah.
So it's
whiskey's always been good at mythologizing.
Yes, that's right. So it's trying to scrape away the myth but sometimes you can't, and sometimes you just revel in it. You mentioned the Highland Line. As people get in touch with me saying that the actual line went across there, and they send me ordnance survey maps, and I was saying, yes, you may be right, but can you police up the hill? Can you take 100 dragoons over that hill? No, see that road there, and I'm pointing at the A81 that goes from George Square right up to Stirling into Trossachs, and that was called the Garscoob Pike Toll Road for hundreds of years.
Right.
Before there was tarmac, that was a route for the reavers, not the smugglers, the routes of transportation from the Highlands into Glasgow.
Like a Drovers Road or something?
Drovers, that's what it's like. Not Reavers, that's the border Reavers. The Drovers. The Drovers. And that's the road they were taking into Glasgow. And then by the 18th, late 17th, the early 18th century, it started to become a toll road.
Right.
You had to pay money to walk into Glasgow, right into George Square. And so this was a major highway. Of horse and carts and people walking up and down. So that's the road you policed.
Right.
Can't police this line that was drawn from the Clyde to the Tay to divide Highlands and Lowlands. That's the road you police. And that was one of the main roads in this whole area. So we think there was 2 excise officers, one in Blainfield, one in Strathblane.
Right.
Often paid to look the other way, potentially.
Potentially, yes.
And the Dumbarton Castle is a military road, so the Dumbarton Castle, with the troops landing there, would be marched up. Right, there's a couple of ways to go, but some would come up here on their way to Glasgow. So it was a major thoroughfare.
Aye. I like that, your analogy or your idea of trying to get troops up Dumgoyne, because I climb Dumgoyne quite regularly because it's handy.
It's a great place.
It's a great wee scramble, but try to march troops up there wouldn't work, would it?
No, it isn't. And try and police, over Fintry. No, that was one of the main arteries. That's the road you police for smuggling, and the smugglers could take. But effectively, that is the division between Highlands and Line.
Because it was the main transport route.
It was. I think if you go through an ordnance survey map, there might be slightly variations, but effectively, that is the line.
That's an interesting way of thinking about it.
Glengoyne Burnfoot Farm does not move over.
No.
That road until I've got one licence from 1883 and a definitive licence in 1897.
Right.
So the Lang brothers that were the third custodians expanded and they renamed it Glengoyne. So Glengoyne moved over the road in 1883. I think maybe the first dunnage across here. So that's effectively we're 50 or 60 years this side of the road.
Aye.
You know, so maybe that just laid the ground and the fabric for always being Highland.
Yes, that makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah.
You know.
I think I've lost track of how long we've been blethering,
I know.
but we're going to, I think, try and wrap up.
Well, if anybody's listening, please come to Glengoyne. And if anybody wins the tickets, let me know, and I'll try and see if I'm around. I'll take them around myself.
Oh, brilliant! Aye,
I'd love to do that.
Aye, yeah.
So it's you buy a bottle and then you get into a draw.
Yeah, it's running through October.
Okay.
You buy a bottle, we put your name in the draw, and then you get 2 tickets for the. I've forgotten the name of it.
It's Fine and Rare. I think
Fine and Rare.
Which will be
experience.
which is, I think at the moment it's 4 drams.
Right.
So you come to Glengoyne, I think you'll get the new Glengoyne Mizunara, the Glengoyne White Oak 24, and the 25 and 30.
I've tasted the last tour I did, we had the 24, the White Oak 24. It's such a sweet dram.
It is. This is sensational, but it's not very much of it because it's got the same
Aye.
recipe as the non-aged statement White Oak. So we've got unseasoned casks, 24 years old.
Yes.
There's not many of them.
No.
So there's not many 24s around, but the non-age is a great tram for sharing and splashing around as well. So that you come here and do that. And if I'm around, I would love to do it with you.
That'd be great. Excellent.
Without the car. Don't bring your car if you win that.
Well, actually, when we were coming out here, the number 10 bus was broken down.
I saw that. I call that the happy bus. So, when I'm around the others, I say, just get number 10, and all the fellow people that run tours, chat, and and go and find a bar together. It's a great, communal thing to do on exiting the distillery. So the happy bus.
Might have done that myself once or twice. All right,
brilliant,
Gordon. Let's wrap up. As I say, you get all the details of the competition on the page on the website. So I'll just finish by thanking you very much for the blethers, Gordon. And I think you and I need to sit down over a dram and go down some more history rabbit holes.
Yes,
so,
and I think there's a tasting of the good spirits at some point.
I think I'm doing. We haven't announced that yet.
Have you not? Okay.
No, that's okay. But there will be something before the end of the year.
There is. It's in my diary. So
it's in our diary too. But we haven't announced it.
Okay. Oh, it's good to do. A sort of
a teaser.
A teaser.
So look out for that at some point before the end of the year.
Yes. We'll do a big history deep dive that night.
Oh, brilliant! That's great. Excellent.
Right.
Thank you,
Roddy. Thank you so much.
Thanks. It was good fun talking.
Great. Thank you.
See you soon, folks.